Hello, everyone. I'm Wayne, and welcome to Goals by the Numbers. If you're passionate about football and love diving into stats behind every game, you've come to the right place. We break down performances, analyze tactics sometimes, and give you a deep statistical look at the biggest matches. Today, we'll take a closer look at Manchester United and their journey to St James Park with a somewhat rotated team, Liverpool finding a way past West Ham, and Arsenal. So, Real Madrid versus Arsenal. We all saw the memes for this match this week, but when I saw a stat that Arsenal had not conceded more than 3 goals in 79 matches, I thought, you know what? Maybe they can actually do this, and this might actually be harder for Real Madrid than people expect. So the match, Arsenal won the match 2-1 at the Bernabeu, and go through to the semi-final of the Champions League. The standout moment in the first half was the penalty missed by Bukayo Saka. He tried a Panenka, which didn't really go down the middle, and was saved by Courtois. And people with, I guess, lesser characters would have shriveled in that moment, but he didn't. In the last 30 minutes of the match, so the second half, the goals started to go in. First was Saka, who scored with a chip over Courtois, before Vinicius Jr. closed down Saliba, took the ball off him, and equalised. And as the clock ticked down towards the end of the match and time was running out, Arsenal broke away, and Martinelli scored to seal the match on the night. Madrid had 66% possession, but that didn't help. And as we always say, more possession doesn't actually mean winning the match. So outside of the possession, which didn't help Madrid, they had 18 shots compared to Arsenal's 10. Arsenal also made 40, yes, 40 clearances. And to put that in context, on average, during the Premier League this season in their matches, they have made 17.15 clearances. This was more than twice the amount that they usually do. Following the match, following the first leg of the tie, it was also announced that the Premier League had secured an extra spot in the Champions League for next season, which means the top 5 will be going into the Champions League, which means that Man City, currently sitting in 5th, a point ahead of Chelsea, are in prime position to take that place. In the Premier League, I should also note, Arsenal's form is maybe starting to tail off a little bit. And looking at the form table, out of the 5 teams trying to claim the now 3 places left in the Champions League, assuming Liverpool and Arsenal claim theirs, 2 of those teams, Newcastle and Aston Villa, are currently in better form than Arsenal. The likelihood of Arsenal being caught by the chasing pack is low, but it should be noted that there is a 4-point gap between Arsenal and Newcastle. Arsenal dominated possession in their match against Brentford, hitting 63%, and despite 14 shots and goals, they only managed 3 on target, 1 more actually than Brentford. I'm sure the high of beating Real Madrid should help their form have an uptick. And as we mentioned before, Bukayo Saka is such an effective player for that team. So now that he's back, as he gets more matches under his belt, his form should improve and he can become a very key player in their remaining few matches. So on to our next match, Newcastle versus Manchester United. Beating Manchester United was Newcastle's 4th win on the bounce. And looking back at their results, Newcastle haven't actually drawn a match since playing Liverpool back in December, and that was a 3-3 draw. Manchester United, on the other hand, have not won 2 matches on the bounce in the Premier League all season. Defeat against Newcastle, a 4-1 defeat no less, was the 3rd match without a win, and in those 3 matches they've only scored 1 goal, and that was courtesy Garnacho. In a match that was reasonably even up until half time, Newcastle firmly took control in the second half, scoring 3 goals. There was a thought process before the match that at this point in the season, Manchester United would rotate a lot of their players because the league was done. They couldn't mathematically win enough points to qualify for Europe, and the Europa League would have to take precedence. So with that in mind, players like Bruno Fernandes, who always plays all the time, every minute he actually was substituted. And yeah, the aim was to rest the better players, with the match against Lyon, which will be coming up later on today. But if I'm honest, I don't think the best 11 players Manchester United could have put out on the pitch would have beaten Newcastle. I actually saw a tweet the other day that said, and I quote, Ruben Amorim left Sporting with 11 wins in a row in the league. So 33 out of 33 points. Why did he ruin his life and join Manchester United? The more I think about that tweet, the worse it gets and the funnier it gets at the same time. I guess that's shouting for it, right? At this point, it's known that he did want to join at the start of next season because he knew that his system was different enough from the previous manager that it would take time to implement. And I do wonder, does he regret agreeing to take over in the middle of the season? So the numbers: Harvey Barnes, 2 goals, both in the second half. He made 2 crosses and 1 tackle. Another player for Newcastle who was quite important, Bruno Guimaraes, 1 goal, 2 shot created actions, and also 2 crosses. Outside of the numbers, the Newcastle team just looked fitter and stronger. And keeping that in mind, Jacob Murphy moved the ball forward 269 yards, the highest distance in the match of any player from both teams. Manchester United had Lenny Yoro move the ball 204 yards. One as a winger and the other one is a defender named Yoro. Something just doesn't seem to sit right with that. Manchester United had 3 other players carry the ball over 100 yards. Those players being Manuel Ugarte, Diogo Dalot, and the goalkeeper, Bryan Deer. In contrast, Newcastle had 9 of those players. Had 9 players move the ball over 100 yards, and none of them was the goalkeeper. So, bigger, stronger, quicker. Well, if not that, they just ran more with the ball. And on to our last match, Liverpool versus West Ham. Liverpool won a match where West Ham did give a good representation of themselves, and they actually managed to get 45% of possession at Anfield. Luis Diaz opened the scoring for Liverpool with an assist from Salah, his first assist or goal in 3 matches, and I'm sure that one random person somewhere in the world who was convinced that Salah was finished will be extremely annoyed to see his contribution. West Ham defensively were busier than usual and made 38 clearances, 11 more than their average per match of 27. This was the 5th match in a row where West Ham have not won. Their last victory being against Leicester City. In fact, the 40 matches played since the turn of the year, West Ham have only won 3 of them, and this result leaves them 17th in the league. And when I think, it was only 2 years ago that West Ham won the Europa Conference League, wasn't it? So to go from winning that title to this is a real big swing. Van Dijk and Andy Robertson combined to score an own goal for West Ham. Then Van Dijk, a few minutes later, actually scored the winning goal before Fulkrug hit the bar for West Ham with a header late on. Liverpool, who are 13 points clear of Arsenal in second, are 2 wins away from securing the title. Their next two matches are against Leicester and Tottenham, who sit 19th and 15th currently. So surely by the match against Chelsea at Stamford Bridge, they were playing as champions. So, numbers. Diaz and McAllister both had 4 shots, 2 on target. Salah and Diaz and McAllister all made 4 or more shot creating actions. Salah also made 4 passes into the penalty area. West Ham, as a team, they had Paqueta, who did have a good game. He made 4 through balls and had the most touches of his team being 74. So questions. In the Newcastle game, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is, in the Newcastle game, Bayern started instead of Andre Onana. Do we think both of those players will be at the club next season? Another question. Will Manchester United's bad form continue for the rest of the season, or can they turn their form around and win the Europa League? And our last question would be, are Arsenal now serious contenders for the Champions League after beating Real Madrid? A few things to think about. So, that's been Goals by the Numbers. I'm Wayne. Leave your thoughts and comments in the comment section below. And yeah, I'll catch you in the next one.